Member Tom LaBonge for a presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam President. We're here this morning as we, in prelude to our council meeting, and we have the honor to salute the Korean Daily on their 30th anniversary. And if I might add, if I could ask that our ITA roll the tape so we could see a little description of their great history here in Los Angeles in the West.
The Korea Daily, the most influential opinion-leading newspaper with a daily circulation of 2 million, was established in 1965 in Seoul, Korea, as a member company of the Samsung Group, Korea's largest business conglomerate. In the early 1970s, there was a great wave of Korean immigration to the United States. Korean immigrants came to the United States in pursuit of the American dream. Recognizing the need for minority-focused news and communication for the Korean-American population, the Korea Daily was established as a U.S. corporation in Los Angeles in 1974. The U.S. edition of the Korea Daily started from very humble beginnings. From a circulation of 6,000 localized in Los Angeles, it now boasts a readership of 250,000 across the continent, with offices in New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, Denver, Las Vegas, Hawaii, Dallas, and San Diego. We have expanded our operation to cover the Latin American countries of Brazil and Argentina. The Los Angeles edition of the Korea Daily is composed of 5 sections: local and business news, sports, culture and calendar, news from Korea, and classified advertisements. On a daily basis, the newspaper averages 160 total pages. In addition to the daily newspaper, the Korea Daily publishes a monthly and weekly magazine. Recently, we added a daily newspaper to cover sports to our publication list. The Ilgun, or Daily Sports, covers major U.S. professional sports events and entertainment industry. We recently finished the installation work for top-speed full-color printing facility in Cerritos to accommodate the increasing circulation demands. The Korean-American population in the Southland numbers only 600,000, but makes an enormous contribution to the local and state economy. The Koreatown in Los Angeles is a vibrant example of how immigrants contribute to the growth of the regional economy of their new homeland. We're proud of the major part we have played in the tremendous growth of our community. Please join us in commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Korea Daily. President George Bush, in his congratulatory message, highly praised our efforts to help encourage responsible citizens and advance the ideals that make America strong.
Daily, congratulations. Intech Park is their publisher who's with me this morning. I'm also joined by Greg Smith. Although I would say a large portion of Koreatown is within Mr. Ludlow's 10th district, much is in my district, but a predominant number of Korean Americans live in the great 12th district in the far west San Fernando Valley, the northwest San Fernando Valley. I'm going to call on Greg to speak in a minute, but I want to just recap some things here. As in 1965, the Korean Daily was established in South Korea in the early 1970s, increasing number of Korean immigrants throughout the United States to pursue their American dream. Recognizing that fact, the Korean Daily born its U.S. edition in Los Angeles in 1974. The U.S. edition of the Korean Daily started from a humble beginning with a circulation of just 6,000 localized here in Los Angeles, and now boasts a national readership of over 250,000 with offices in San Francisco, New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Seattle, Hawaii, Dallas, Las Vegas, and the San Diego areas. The network is expected to cover even into Canada as well. The Korean Daily is recognized as one of the most important sources of news and information and opinion leading throughout the Korean American community. It began as an outlet for Koreans in America to read about important events in Korea, but evolved to meet the ever-changing needs of the growing community of Koreans here in America. Today, the Korean Daily reports not only about politics, business, and other important news within the United States and Korea, but also fosters the development of minority business. Last year, Korean American community celebrated their centennial, as you know, to America. One of the great highlights was the great float down the middle of Colorado Boulevard in celebrating the Rose Parade, which was so much joy to the Korean community. As the early pioneers sought a new life in America, they came filled with boundless hope and determination. And Korean Americans nowadays are working hard to become an integral thread of the United States in our inner multiracial fabric. The Korean Daily provides vital information to our community, and we want to salute them today. And I'd like to call on, before I make the official presentation, the great councilman of the 12th District, Mr. Smith, for a few comments as we salute the Korean Daily.
Well, thank you, Mr. Blanche, and I'm very happy to join with you today. The Korean population is the fastest growing community within the 12th Council District. The areas of Granada Hills and Porter Ranch in particular is a home to a very, very rapidly growing Korean population. We just opened the Korean Galleria, which is a Korean-owned market in the area at the intersection of Devonshire-Reseda, the big intersection in the 12th District. And so the Korean population is very important to the 12th District as well as the City of LA. And whenever we have any events in the district, I must say the Korean Daily is there to report to the Korean population of what's going on in their neighborhood. So I'm very happy to join Councilman LaBonge in this presentation today and congratulate the Korean Daily on 30 years of great reporting of what's going on in LA to one of our rapidly growing populations of Los Angeles. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we also have Mr. Reyes who would like to speak. Councilmember Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to rise and congratulate Korean Daily for their success. For many years, a good portion of Koreatown was in District 1 before redistricting. And I've been able to see many of the businesses mature since 1993. And it's just been an incredible amount of growth on Wilshire and Pico and all over the central part of Los Angeles. But in particular, I want to thank you for all the information given to all the churches. The Young Nac Church is probably one of the largest congregations in Los Angeles, and they're in my district as well as the Holy Hill Church. And I can probably go on several churches, but they do a tremendous amount of work in community support, community cleanups. They work with our nonprofits. So you talk about how a diverse city can come together. I believe the Korean community has done a fantastic job, and I'm sure because knowledge is power and so is information, you're key to that process. So thank you so much, and have a great event, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now please welcome the publisher, Intake Park of the Korean Daily. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you so much for the honor that you have bestowed upon us. As you have just witnessed in the visual presentation, the Korea Daily has two clearly defined goals: to help Korean immigrants adjust to their new homeland and to get them involved in community they live in. The Korea Daily believes an integral part of our mission is to help people become more responsible citizens. For example, last Saturday, the Korea Daily launched a massive effort to help clean up the beaches in Southern California during Coastal Cleanup Day. We urged the Korean American community to join together in service to the community. Thousands of Korean Americans came out to volunteer their time. The result was beyond our expectations. We'll continue in our effort to help make the city of Los Angeles the greatest city to live in. Thank you again for this honor and joining us in celebrating the 30th anniversary of our newspaper. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Congratulations and thank you, Mr. Labange. We now do have a quorum, so Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Han, Labange, Ludlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Beaver, Gosa, Weiss, Sine, Padilla, 11 members present and a quorum, Madam President.
All right, let's go through the items.
First order of business is approval of the minutes.
Mr. Zine moves, Ms. Gruhl seconds, the minutes are approved.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Ms. Hahn moves, Mr. Cardenas seconds, those are also approved.
And Madam President, this is Tuesday. There is a flag salute. Do you wish to take that up now?
Yes, as soon as Mr. Labange is finished with the picture. Mr. Labange, can I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please all rise and place our right hand over heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Garcetti also has a presentation, so let us at this moment recognize Councilmember Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President. It gives me great joy, colleagues, to stand here today with a number of distinguished guests, I think familiar to many of you. First and foremost, Norma Foster, who you'll be hearing from shortly, who's the president of the United Nations Association here in Los Angeles, but my good friend Ted Lutzinger as well, with, among other affiliations, I know you wear quite a few, Citizens for Global Solutions, Joan Collins Carey, who's a board member of the United Nations Association USA, Goodwin De Silva, Ambassadors for Peace, Tesfaye Abgaz as well from Los Angeles World City, and also a board member. And is Geraldine Washington? She's not, okay. And Geraldine Washington is here in spirit as well. Today, colleagues, is International Day of Peace around the world. The first International Day of Peace was established by United Nations resolution in 1981 and was first inaugurated on the third Tuesday of September in 1982, first celebrated some 22 years ago. And I want to read the language of the UN General Assembly resolution that said that the world should devote a specific time to concentrate the efforts of the United Nations and its member states, as well as the whole of mankind, to promoting the ideals of peace and to giving positive evidence of their commitment to peace in all viable ways. I wanted just to reflect that Mr. Zine and myself, Mr. Padilla, had the privilege of going to Norway this past year when the Nobel Peace Prize was given out. And a woman who is a friend to Los Angeles, Shireen Ebadi, a wonderful woman, spoke incredibly powerfully. She was the Nobel laureate last year, of course, for peace, about making peace something that is not just an abstract ideal that we talk about in the world, but that we translate that to the country, to the state, to the city, to your own neighborhood, and ultimately to your own family. That peace must be seamless from the very part that we start our day in with our closest loved ones, all the way to those who live many miles away from us. And so we join today in recognizing that peace in a city where young people are still shot down because they're helping paint out graffiti, as I know has happened twice in CD14, in a city where young people sometimes are caught by stray gunfire, where domestic violence, other acts of violence permeate the city, but also in a world which has too many wars still and too much violence. So today we declare with the Mayor James K. Hahn that September 21st, 2004 is the International Day of Peace here in Los Angeles. And just as Mr. Labange travels the world and talks to many of our sister cities in promoting that friendship between nations, we also hope that the ideals bring us together, not just that friendship across cultural boundaries, but the ideals that we share, first and foremost, that of peace. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Norma Foster to say a few words on behalf of the United Nations Association.
Thank you very much. Sure. Thank you much, Councilman Garcetti. Madam President Pro Tem, City Council members, We thank you for placing us on the agenda today. The UNA USA is the largest grassroots advocacy organization in the United States, and the United Nations Association Pacific LA chapter is very proud of our long-standing relationship with the City Council and the City of Los Angeles. Last year, the Governor of California, Mayor Hahn, and the City Council formalized the United Nations International Day of Peace on September 21st, and we are recognizing it henceforth throughout the world. We thank Mayor Hahn and the members of the council for proclaiming this day as International Day of Peace in the City of Los Angeles. And we're very proud also to let Councilman Tom LaBonge know that tonight at the Cherimoya Avenue School in Hollywood, they also will be reading the proclamation. The students will be, so we're very proud of that. And thank you again, and our board members and NGOs who are standing with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti, and welcome to here, City Hall. Madam Clerk, let's go on through the agenda.
First order of business, Madam President, do you wish to take up public comment at this time?
Oh, we can call for public comment at this time. There are no public comment cards that have been submitted. They're all on various items, so the public hearing is opened and closed. Next items.
On the agenda, items noticed for public hearing, items 1 through 5 are confirmation of building and safety assessments, and I believe there is a card on item number 2.
Right, item number 2, we do have a card, so we'll call that special. The other items, 1, 3, 4, and 5 are before us. Members, are there any specials? 1 through 5 without 2? If not, open the rolls on those items. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved.
Next item, Madam President, item number 6 is a public hearing, Tarzana Safari Walk Business Improvement District. No vote is required today. The ballot tabulation will be in council tomorrow, and this is a public hearing.
All right, I do not have cards submitted on item 6. We will tabulate the ballot tomorrow. Is there anyone who wants to call 6 special? If not, we will open the hearing and close the hearing, and the matter will be before us again tomorrow.
The next item is item number 7, and that's also a public hearing item, a street vacation in Council District 13.
All right, there is a card that is submitted on item 7, so we will call that special.
Item number 8 is a public hearing item. It's a street lighting district in Council District 3.
Special on that, please.
We will call item 8 special.
And item number 9 is also a public hearing. It's a public convenience or necessity in Council District 14, and I believe there is a card on that.
Yes, there is, so we will call 9 special.
Next items, Madam President, are items for which public hearings have been held. Items 10 through 33. Items 10, 11, and 12 are confirmation of city officials. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
We will hold those and begin our session with those items called, those 10, 11, and 12 called special.
The next items then, items 13 through 33 are before council. Item 13 has 3 reports on the file. A motion is required on that.
We also have an amending motion, so we'll call 13 special. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Madam President. If I could just ask for item 19 to be sent back to committee, please.
There is a request to withdraw 19 and refer it back to ITGS. Is there any objection to that? If not, that will be the order. Mr. Zine.
Parks that we continue 29 one day.
20. Is there any objection to continuing 29 for one day? If not, that will be the order.
And item 30, I'd like to move approval of both reports on item 30.
All right, 30 does have 2 reports on the file, but Mr. Zine has moved both together. There's no inconsistency. So that is now before us. Any other specials, members, 14 through 33, other than those that have been continued? Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. Actually, 31, 32, and 33, I'd like to get continued for 2 weeks.
All right, there is a request from Ms. Hahn to continue items 31, 32, and 33 dealing with the pipeline franchise for 2 weeks. If there's no objection, that'll be the order.
And the new date would be October the 5th.
All right, October the 5th, those items will be back before us. Again, the remainder of the items, 14 through, I think that's 28. No other specials. Open the roll on those items. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held. Items 34 through 65, 10 votes are required for consideration.
Items 34 through 65 are before us. There are cards on item 52. So I think Mrs. Hahn wanted to call that special, so we'll hear that. Any other items, members 34 through 65? Seeing no other specials, those matters are before us. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved.
Going back to the items called special, that would take council back to the commissioners. Item number 10 is confirmation of Ms. J. Young to the CRA board.
Is Ms. Young present? Please come forward. We do have a Housing Committee report recommending this confirmation. Anyone wishing to address us on this appointment? This is CRA appointment.
Good morning, this is Jay Young.
Ms. Young is before us. I see no members wishing to speak, so I think we're about to vote and give you a very important assignment.
Thank you.
Open the roll on the confirmation. Oh, Mr. Garcetti?
Be very brief. I just wanted to thank Ms. Young. We had Ms. Young come to committee, unanimously supported. She has a great background in not only this City Hall, having worked in from Mr. Ridley Thomas in the past, right after the civil unrest, but also in development in general, and I think will bring a great voice on good and sensible and responsible development in the city and how to get that done, how to get deals done, and to help all regions of the city make sure that some of those deficit areas, we had a good discussion about bringing them into being more revenue-producing areas and really making the CRA model work throughout the city. So I recommend everybody's strong support. I know she's a resident of Mr. Labange's district, and I'm sure he has full support of her too, and hopefully it will be unanimous today. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. We now have the recommendation before us. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
You are unanimously confirmed, and thank you very, very much for, I think so it's going to be some very intensive service.
Thank you so much.
Next item.
Madam President, just to let the council know, there were closed session items 66, 67, 68, and 69, and do you wish to hold those matters on the desk?
We will hold those. Thank you.
Going back to the items called special, item number 11 is confirmation of Ms. Felicia Brannon to the LA Homeless Service Authority.
Ms. Brannon is walking up to join us as well. Thank you for being at City Hall. We also have the Housing Community and Economic Development Committee report confirming this, Ms. Brannon to the Los Angeles Housing Services Agency. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you again, Madam President. We also had Ms. Brannon come before the Committee at Housing, Community, and Economic Development. She happens to be somebody I've known before she came to the committee and really admire the work that she has done. I know Janice Hahn is a big fan of Habitat for Humanity, and recently Ms. Brannon was president of the board of Habitat for Humanity in the area, so really comes to us extremely qualified, and I know that she's going to do some extraordinary things, and we welcome you into the service, and I ask for everybody's unanimous vote today.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gruhl.
Thank you, Ms. Misikowski. Nice to see you, Felicia.
Nice to see you again.
And so pleased that you are willing to serve on the LA Homeless Service Authority. As you probably know, when I worked for the mayor, we sued the county, and part of that resolution, Janice says they're still mad at us for suing them many years ago, but it was to ensure that we had a responsive, coordinated approach to homelessness. And the LAHSA was one of those settlement agreements because we felt it was critical to coordinate all of that. And so we've had high hopes for that. And we hope that you as a new member and your experience will continue to push to ensure we're competitive on the federal level for those funds, that I know know Ms. Perry and I and Mr. Garcetti and others have a real interest in homeless issues and not to sweep them under the rug. So I hope that you will continue to bring it to the forefront and to remind people in the city of Los Angeles that we do have a homeless problem. And we need to look at creative ways to solve that, whether it be mental health services or housing, jobs, et cetera. So I'm just very pleased with your experience that you're going to serve on this board and wholeheartedly support your nomination, and I know unanimous approval today. Thank you. Thanks, Felicia.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Felicia. I'm also very glad to see you. Felicia and I go way back. Almost 20 years. I'm very pleased that you have agreed to serve on what I consider to be one of the more challenging commissions in the city of Los Angeles. And like Wendy, I have a real interest in really getting the commission to try to think long-term, really work with all the agencies to try to really come up with a comprehensive plan on really dealing with what I consider to be a serious problem. And we have these issues all over the city of Los Angeles. But one of the things also, we're all worrying about the West Nile virus really being a serious plague. And one of the things I was hoping was for us to have a constant outreach to the homeless on this issue. As you know, the most serious time for people to get bit is dusk to dawn, and certainly by bodies of water. And many of our homeless, I know in my district, camp out around my Lake Machado. So just wondering if you had any comments on how we can continue to, long-term think about the homeless issues, but short-term, when we have a real public safety issue, how might we, maybe set aside normal protocol and really reach out and try to protect them from a very, very life-threatening illness?
Well, I think you touched upon it just now by saying reaching out to those who are homeless. Quite frankly, or quite very often, they're not privy to such information that is required to keep one safe and one in the environment at which their health isn't jeopardized. And so I think that is just really the key point, is making sure the outreach is there, but then there's also the information that's provided to those who are in this particular predicament.
Thank you, and I wish you well.
Thank you.
It's quite a challenge to be on this commission, but you know what? Appreciate your willingness, and we know that you're up for the challenge.
I'm looking forward to it.
I wholeheartedly support your nomination.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now have this confirmation before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Congratulations, and thank you for your service. Item 12.
And that's a confirmation of Ms. Lisette Arsuaga to the Rent Adjustment Commission.
Ms. Arsuaga is also here and coming forward. Again, we had a busy Housing Committee. This is recommended by the Housing Committee. I don't see any council members wishing to speak on this matter, so the confirmation recommendation is before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you. You are confirmed, and thank you again.
Next item, Madam President, item number 2 is called special for cards from the public.
All right, this is item 2, and we do have a card that was submitted by Mr. Riley McDonald. Is Mr. McDonald still with us on this issue? Please come forward at this time and address us on this building and safety report. Come forward, Mr. McDonald. Speak at the podium there, the microphone. Mr. McDonald, this is your time to address us, so go ahead and just speak into the microphone on what you would like to tell us.
Yes, my name is Riley McDonald. Good morning. This has been very painful to me. The information given here is regarding work at 625 West 47th Street. The bill regarding the gate and fencing across the front of the property for $1,300 is accurate. I explained that to the building inspector from the beginning, but the other bills that were charged, there was nothing done. All of the other work done, the cleaning and so on, I had it done. I paid for it, and I can get witnesses to prove. The only thing that Building and Safety did was to ensure that the 8 feet fence and gate was installed across the front, because people would jump over the 4 feet fence. The cleaning of the property then and now, I pay for. I have spent well over $1,000 just keeping the lot cleaned. There has never been any graffiti on that building. And I suggested to Mr. Zamperini when I spoke to him, I said, if Building and Safety saw that anything was done to that building, except for the installation of the fence and gate across the front for the $1,300, they did that. I would like the name of the person who did it. It has never been provided.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. We now will turn, Ms. Perry, this is a building and safety action on a building in the 9th District.
I would like to move to support the recommendations of the department. They've spent an enormous amount of time inspecting the property, and the property has been improved in response to their inspections, and so I think that we need to go ahead and support that.
All right, this was an abatement action with Building and Safety to cover the costs of barricading the openings and graffiti abatement, cleaning and fencing. So the matter is before us, and Ms. Perry has moved confirmation of the assessment. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. And Mr. McDonald, I believe there's somebody on the side from either the Council District Office or Building and Safety who can answer those questions for you. Next item.
Next item, Madam President, item number 7 was call special for cards from the public.
Let me call forward, we have 2 cards that were submitted on this matter, Mr. Ian McCubbin and Jim McQuiston. Jim, I see you in the audience. Why don't you come forward? And Mr. McCubbin or McCubbin, if he is also here, he can please come forward.
Yes, good morning, Council. Thank you very much for your time. I'm Ian McCubbin from the Hollywood United Neighborhood Council. I'm a member of the council and also co-chair of our parking committee. The current proposal is regarding the closure of Vista Del Mar, a cul-de-sac just south of the 101. The landlord, Robert over here, has done a great job and was very proactive in cleaning up the neighborhood by closing off the street. Unfortunately, in closing off the street, he did not go through normal channels to have that process approved by the city, which has upset a number of the neighborhood members. So they have come to us concerned that the proper channels were not followed to close the street off, and also feel that he's trying to take the property away from the city. So I'm representing that neighborhood right now. We have come to a compromise last night in our neighborhood council meeting in that we feel what the landlord has done is a good thing in terms of cleaning up crime and getting rid of the homeless encampments there. However, the current proposed rentals are 39 new units into the Hollywood area, which is a highly impacted parking region. We're very concerned that the landlord has not addressed the parking problem for the neighborhood. So what we, the neighborhood council, voted on last night is that we can find a compromise between the landlord and the neighborhood, which is a challenge because we are coming under fire on both sides for this, but we would like to say that yes, what the landlord has done in cleaning up the neighborhood and closing off the street is a good thing. However, we would like him to supply parking for every unit that's in the building. That is our goal.
Thank you for that testimony. Mr. McQuiston?
Jim McQuiston, East Hollywood Community Association. This actually happens to be near my residence. Everyone that touches this particular area has promoted a signed document that you all have now saying, please keep this street open. That means that everyone that lives on Vista Del Mar in that area and everyone who lives on Yucca Street, which is the cross street. The problem is that the landlord really was not responsible for cleaning up the area, although he does claim that. And there are some serious problems in that particular area, which the landlord has actually promoted. But we really are more interested in preserving our area. One of the big problems is that we need the parking for visitors, and we need the area open so that the surrounding properties, some of which are not permitted to park on the streets there, can actually exist there. Otherwise, we're liable to get into a rundown situation of the properties. So we are concerned about leaving the area open. We're also concerned about the precedent that we're setting here. There's an awful lot of these cul-de-sacs near the freeways, and as you all know, we are besieged by parking problems, especially in the heavily dense areas. So we do think that it would be very unfortunate for this particular street to be closed.
Thank you, Mr. McQuiston. Let me recognize at this time Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And first, let me thank Ian and the Neighborhood Council. I know when folks come down here on their volunteer time who have full-time jobs, I really appreciate you being able to come down here and not only work in the evening times, but also to be able to testify during the day, and we appreciate that. I also want to thank Mr. McQuiston for his good work as well. And I was wondering, Mr. Akhavan, if you might be able to come to the microphone just to get a couple things on the record as well. It seems like the Neighborhood Council's activities have yielded somewhat of a compromise. I also know that there's this petition was circulating at the same time. Do you feel that you can meet, I know you've talked about 10, do you feel that you can meet up to maybe more like, I know 39 was the maximum, that's probably going to be impossible, but 19, as this petition says, is there any way that Mr. McQuiston claimed with the engineering that they could get 19 spaces in there? Is that something that you can commit to working towards?
I promised in last night's voting the maximum allowable parking spots. That would benefit me as well.
Sure.
So absolutely maximum allowable parking spots will be created in that cul-de-sac.
And do you have any sense of how many that could be, range-wise?
Right now, I could see about 10, commit to 10. Beyond that, I will be as creative as I can be, again, within the legal means.
Okay, well, what I'd like to, if you could just commit on record to working with myself, my own office, Mr. McQuiston, who, as an engineer who has shown that, at least in this petition, says that we can get maybe up to 19, to working towards that. And I assume that was Mr. McQuiston without a structure. I know when we start talking structures, that begins to get into a very
Yeah,
much more
I don't
expensive.
want, this is Jim McQuiston again. I don't want to get into a big engineering discussion, which will put us all asleep. But the problem is, if the street is closed off, you cannot get 19. There's no way. If the street is left open, you can get 19. It's a problem of building and safety because the building is actually facing on Del Mar.
Right.
If you close Del Mar, there is no exit on Yucca. So therefore, you have to build a special exit way which takes up the parking spaces.
Okay.
May I respond to that, Mr. Garcia?
Sure, why don't we?
Completely opposite. As a private, being involved as a professional engineer, being involved in construction and development for 25 years. As a private entity closed out, I have more means of flexibility than a public parking. City liabilities and other issues that I'm sure you're familiar with. So contrary to what Mr. McQuiston just claimed, is completely opposite. I can get more parking spots having the cul-de-sac closed.
Okay. Before we get into too much of an open hearing, Ian, did you want to say one thing on that too? And then, yeah, go ahead.
problem that we're facing here in Hollywood with this building and a lot of buildings in the neighborhood is that they were built in the 1920s, and that was prior to parking being required for the buildings. So this building has basically been completely gutted and rebuilt, and it's beautiful. However, the extensive construction that has gone on may be questionable in terms of requiring new parking to be supplied to the tenants.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, maybe what we could do is this, without getting into an engineering discussion at the microphone, if you would be willing to just orally commit that if this vacation goes through, and it certainly is, public land that would come into your benefit, that if there's somewhere where we engineer it and we can maximize more spaces, but it requires some right-of-way, that you'd be open to us being able to do that and keep a part of that public if that maximizes the spaces. If you believe that can be done just as maximized as a private space, then then maybe we won't have to get there. But if you would commit to that orally.
I will commit to that with one exception, as long as we be able to maintain the security that the whole intent was based on, creating that security and making sure that it's blocked off from
And we all share
transients.
that goal of making sure that that doesn't continue to become a place for vagrants as well.
Yes.
So, okay.
Great. Thank you.
Well, I will, colleagues, recommend that we move forward then with that commitment today. What I would like to say for the folks that are there, we realize there are a lot of buildings that also don't have the parking requirements that are in place, and so we have one moving forward that also reflects problems that are up and down the street, which I see here in the petition and which I understand and fully respect. But I think what we'll have to do then is sit down. I'm going to ask both the residents that are right there, Mr. McQuiston, Neighborhood Council, myself, and city engineers sit down with the property owner and begin to figure out how we can maximize those parking spaces moving ahead. Okay? Thank you.
All right, we have heard Mr. Garcetti's recommendation that we approve this with the record to reflect that there will be efforts to achieve maximized parking on the land that will be vacated. So that matter is now before us. Open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
All right, Mr. Cardenas, did you?
I'd like to move item 62 forthwith. It was approved earlier. Thank you. 62.
All right, without objection, 62 will be forthwith. 49, there was also a request to go forthwith. Yes, that will be noted.
Next item, Madam President, item number 8 was called special by Councilmember Zine.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam President. On item number 8, I'd like to have a substitute motion to adopt an ordinance of intent to set a new hearing date of December 8th, 2004 on that matter.
All right, Mr. Zine has submitted a substitute action for a new protest hearing on the date he indicated. Is there any objection to that?
And there is an ordinance on the file.
So the ordinance will be held over until after we act on a new public hearing date.
Well, the ordinance would be adopted to set the new hearing date.
All right, then we will have the ordinance to set the new hearing date as Mr. Zine has recommended.
On December 8th. Okay.
All right, then that matter is now before us as indicated on the amendment. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved.
And the next item is item number 9, and that was called special for cards from the public. It's a public convenience or necessity in Council District 14.
All right, we have one card that was submitted on item 9. That is Leslie Kroom. If Leslie would come forward and address us.
Good morning, Madam President, council members. My name is Leslie Kroom. I work with United Coalition East Prevention Project and its coalition members, and we work to reduce and eliminate alcohol, tobacco, and other drug problems in the Central City East community. While you consider granting a conditional use permit for the Rite Aid Pharmacy in the Santee Court at 700 South Los Angeles Street, we ask that you also consider the immediate and surrounding community, the many people who are in recovery, and the vast multitudes of women and children who call this area home. We come to planning and land use hearings and hearings like this, asking that consideration be made for the community that has been here prior to the development. And each time, we leave painfully disappointed. The community of Central City East is rampant with alcohol and drugs, and more families are making the shelters and missions home, being victimized by alcohol-induced violence, and virtually all are unemployed. As we speak, coalition members and staff are currently engaged in legal proceedings to support a young girl, 16, who was arrested defending herself against a male adult who was reportedly under the influence of alcohol. According to our last count, there are at least 27 off-site alcohol licenses within a half-mile radius of this proposed site, and at least 15 on-site. We oppose the granting of an alcohol license to this pharmacy. In the alternative, we ask that our operational conditions be placed on this property. We are submitting a copy of those conditions, along with this letter, 2 maps highlighting the existing outlets in the area. Thank you for your consideration in this matter.
Thank you. Mr. Villaraigosa.
Yes, Madam President, I move to approve this item, the application for determination of public convenience of necessity for alcohol sales for off-site consumption at Santee Court. And I do because I can tell you that as someone who has closed down liquor stores in the 14th Councilmanic District, the issue of magnets for criminal activity is an issue that's very important to me. What we did was here, this is a Rite Aid store, not a liquor store. This is at Santee Court, one of the best infill housing projects anywhere in the city, in the Central Core. What we've done is put together a series of conditions on the owner to ensure that the community is not impacted. These are some of the toughest conditions, by the way, anywhere in the city, and for that reason, I move this item.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Labange.
Technical question. Is anyone from the planning department here? Are there anybody from the police department here? I just want to know how many, if they could, Madam Clerk, maybe you could help here. How many licenses are available in citywide, broken down in one statistical point? Who would know that information?
That probably would be on the council file, and the council file.
No, overall, not this one particular, Councilman, but I was looking how many in certain areas, or how do they do that?
If I can just, Mr. Labange, that is essentially set as an average or a norm by the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Board. And yet they grant them beyond the norm. What they have is average, but the statistics would be both the Alcohol Control Board and the Planning Department probably has some degree of statistics where they grant the conditional uses.
Right, but who has the statistics, though?
Alcohol Control Board and
ABC?
the ABC and the City Planning Department.
And the City Planning Department. If Con Howell could hear my voice, or anyone from Planning Department, could you just give us a general statistical data on these facilities? Yeah. Well, I do it at the same time because I can't talk about it on the next one, so I'll vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Anybody else wishing to be heard on this item? If not, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That item is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 13 that was called special. There are 3 reports on the file, and an amending motion has been distributed to the council.
Okay, Ms. Misikowski, would like to be recognized first.
Members, I don't know that anyone has called particular attention to item 13, partly because everything we've done for the last year has brought us to this point today. Item 13 deals with the false alarm, burglar alarm issue. And after this committee, this council directed staff to do various things, it took a while to get all those things in order, to get the Office of Finance up to speed and the connected data systems available at the dispatch centers so that they would be able to start having records. It took the burglar alarm industry working with us cooperatively to give us their list of where permits had been, where alarms had been installed, so that we can now cross-correlate between those that were submitted and who has permit, all with our intent of requiring permits, enforcing the requirement of permits, and indicating that after 2 false alarms, we will start having a very significant penalty. What you have before us are three different committees' reports from Public Safety Committee, Education and Neighborhood, and Budget and Finance. And in essence, they are all fine and I think can be adopted. Budget and Finance amended just slightly the Education and Neighborhood, which asked for an abeyance of the penalties, and instead what has been circulated is 13A, which indicates that at least for the period of time as this gets up and running and when people come in to apply for permits, they are not automatically penalized for 1 or 2 years of having passed, not having had a permit. And the ordinance would have triggered that automatically. So 13A relinquishes that or allows this period, sort of, I guess we would call it a safe period where people can come in, get those permits and not be penalized. It also transfers a specific amount of money from the reserve fund to the unappropriated balance and appropriates then to the Office of Finance. We had talked about doing that. We had talked about Office of Finance needing the money, but we hadn't taken the physical step of specifically putting the language in to recommend that transfer. And given that we have taken the time that we had, one of the committee reports asked that we draw up an ordinance to create the new burglar alarm trust fund. Well, since we've been discussing it, the city attorney has created that ordinance, so we can substitute the committee request that it be prepared and presented and instead adopt it today. It is before us, so if we ask that it be presented as part of this action and adopt it, we'll be in good shape. So I think that we are all in concert. It has been, as you all know, a very, very, very high-profile issue that an awful lot of our citizens participated in. But we ultimately all came to the conclusion with the Burglar Alarm Task Force, the city attorney, the police department, who really was trying to get a handle on this issue of unnecessary false alarms, which are still high in percentage, but at least we have seen, given the discussions we've had, the awareness that has grown in the community, there has been a diminution in the numbers. Not yet as significant as we would like it to be, but we're going in the right direction. And I think that is ultimately the most important thing we can do for public safety, in that those who are asking for some kind of special service by way of getting an alarm and getting the police able to react to the alarm take their responsibility seriously of making sure that alarm is working well, they have a permit for it, and they are responsible to make sure that when the call goes out, the call is a legitimate one, and all of this works to that end. So I believe that we are all in concert, and so I ask for an aye vote on the three committee reports and the adoption along with that of 13A, which is submitted and deals with those three issues in terms of the time for Office of Finance to allow suspension of the penalty and get the permits in place, transfer the funds, and the presentation of the ordinance to create the burglar alarm trust fund so that these penalties will go into that. And the reason I think Mr. Smith had asked, well, should that be sunsetted? And we did ask for a 5-year review of the trust fund and then a 5-year review after that. Hopefully, in the beginning, the trust fund will be rather large because people will still not have gotten the message. But after time, we hope that it levels off. But the trust fund, I think, will still be important to use as a funding mechanism for the system upgrades that will continue to take place. We know we need a system upgrade up front on our dispatch system capability to integrate with our 9/11 system. But beyond that, we really need probably an ongoing maintenance to make sure that we are always able to bring the best system upgrades to that system. But just so that it doesn't go into a trust fund and never land, it will come back in 5 years and then again 5 years later to determine whether or not the trust fund needs to stay in place, whether the systems are in place. It may have been able to be subsumed by other systems that are up and operating at that time as well. So I think that we've touched all the bases, done all of the things that we have needed to do in concert with what the task force had done, our citizens task force, how the CLA, city attorney, police department worked with those entities to better hone this subject and bring it today so that as of January 1st, we're starting essentially a new day, new requirement, and new system that will hopefully and ultimately the goal of diminishing false alarms and the use of the police office able to be police officers more directed to the important things that they need to be doing throughout our community, in addition to really responding to the alarms that are appropriate, necessary, and the kind of alarms we all want the police to respond to ASAP will be in place. So I thank you for that and ask for an aye vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Attorney?
Just for clarification, the trust fund ordinance will have to be placed on a continuation agenda because it wasn't on the agenda as consideration of that ordinance.
Okay, then we can put it on the next.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, and I appreciate my colleague, Ms. Sikowski, and how you sort of have helped us remember how we got to this point today. And truly, it has been a long road. It has been a long road to get here today. And I really want to thank everyone who's really worked to make this new ordinance happen. And I really want to give thanks to the Citizens Task Force that gathered here monthly from all over the city, who came here, looked at all the facts, really did the research, really wanted to have a comprehensive ordinance that sort of addressed all the issues that we're talking about. And they were really the ones that came up with the recommendations, many of which are in the final recommendation today. And as Cindy said, my goal has always been certainly to protect the people that have alarms and people that don't have alarms, but it's also been to reduce false alarms. Clearly no one was in favor of false alarms, not the alarm companies, not the police who responded to those. We're trying to reduce false alarms, but we think this ordinance helps address false alarms. Colleagues, let me just say that the two things that my committee asked for in the ordinance was, one, we really wanted to change the alarm penalty from a misdemeanor to an infraction. We don't really think that after 2 false alarms that someone should be arrested who owns an alarm system and be given a misdemeanor. So we all sort of were asking that become an infraction, not a misdemeanor. We want our police going after the real criminals, not homeowners and business owners who might be operating an alarm system for their own protection. We also wanted this amnesty program to take place, and we wanted it in exchange for people signing up for the permits. We still feel like the big problem in our city is people who don't have permits who are operating alarms. That's difficult for the system. That's certainly difficult for our police department. Part of the problems is we did not know who had alarms, and that helps in the ultimate response in public safety, but it certainly helps us in terms of getting the fees that are owed to the city for operating an alarm. So we wanted the amnesty program to sort of work, if you agree in a certain period of time to come in, own up, get a permit, then we will not charge you for back penalties. So those are the kind of the two major things that my committee was asking for when this ordinance comes back, and I think they make sense. So thank you for getting to this day. It's gone through a lot of committees, a lot of public testimony, a lot of angst out there, but I think we have an ordinance that truly will address all the issues that we've brought to this point. So I urge an aye vote as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn. Our next speaker is Ms. Gruhl, to be followed by Mr. Smith and Ms. Mizikowski.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti, and I think both of the of women, my colleagues here, have spoken about the alarm issue. Are right that we have come a long way. It took us a little longer than any of us would have liked, but I think that we have a policy for us and an ordinance that hopefully will be drafted quickly because the information has been out there for a very long time. And I think that Ms. Nikowski mentioned that there had been a 30% reduction in the false alarms, and that's without formal notification yet from us or the alarm companies necessarily, or LAPD. And I believe that we will substantially or significantly see reduction in the number of false alarms. And the amnesty program, as talked about by both Ms. Sikowski and Hahn, is very similar to what we did on business tax reform, where people, again, could come in, they may not have known that they owed business tax, they were able to pay that that and then be able to start fresh. And I know that we've been working closely with the security firms, alarm firms, to get their lists. I know we have a couple businesses that have yet to provide those to us and have some questions relative to the confidentiality agreement, but I think we should continue to push those alarm companies to provide us with that information. Our residents count on LAPD responding, and we need to respond to the LAPD in ensuring that people are responsible with the use of their alarm systems. So I think that we hopefully can see the light of day and that we will in fact see the number of false alarms reduce even more substantially, and the trust fund dollars that will be collected again will improve the system and will help LAPD, and we should continue to dedicate those funds to the LAPD for that purpose. So I look forward to the ordinance coming back expeditiously so we in fact can, and maybe that would be a question to the City Attorney's Office as to how quickly you believe that ordinance will be coming back to the City Council. If I could hold my time. It's that okay? I thought they were just talking about the trust fund. Okay. What Ms. Zakowski just said is that the ordinance is ready and that it will be coming back in a subsequent day. Correct?
Good morning, Carlos de la Guerra, City Attorney's Office. The ordinance is ready, but I am going to ask that one technical change be made to one of the subsections, and that is subsection L7. L7 is a provision that was added at the request of the alarm industry. I just want to make sure that it's clear that this subsection L7 does not limit or modify subsection L6, was one of the original provisions, which does make it a misdemeanor for any calls more than 2 that are not verified.
Okay, but the ordinance will not be coming before us today. It's coming a subsequent day. Is that correct?
The ordinance is ready today.
There are two the one on recommendation number 1, and then recommendation number 16 would be the trust fund ordinance, which will be coming in on a subsequent day. Okay. I believe the city attorney is speaking to the ordinance that's on the file.
The ordinance is before you, right? Not the trust fund.
Not the trust fund. So
Right.
the actual ordinance is before us today.
Right.
And Ms. Hahn is suggesting that it not be a misdemeanor, it be an infraction, but the current ordinance has it as a misdemeanor. Is that correct? That we have before us today?
It is currently a misdemeanor, and it remains a misdemeanor. The ability to change that to an infraction is not really practical because I'm informed that an infraction or citation requires that it be issued to a person. And most of the times when the officers respond to the scene, there is no one there to issue a citation to. They cannot leave it at the door.
But you don't have to have a person for a misdemeanor?
No, that's considered, it could be considered by the city attorney's office for filing purposes. That could be done at a later date, not at the time of the actual false alarm.
Okay. Colleagues, what he's saying is that a misdemeanor, yes, and all right, what I'll do is I think Mr. Smith is next on the queue, and I may have subsequent questions because that, clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gruhl. Our next speaker is Mr. Smith.
Well, thank you. We've been talking about this issue, and we certainly briefly discussed it in committee. I think the solution would be, and I would recommend to the city attorney and the council, that we make this a wobbler, although in most cases, the officer responding will not have somebody there, but they do show up frequently at the location. If we allow the officers to cite it as an infraction for a person that shows up while they're there as a wobbler, the officer has the choice to make it a misdemeanor or an infraction. Then in those cases where we have a person in our presence, we can do that. But as I think you were pointing out, the officer must have the person present. You cannot mail an infraction. It has to be done in their presence. So if we give the police officer the right to make that an infraction at their choice, if there is a person present, then we get around that. But also then, if it's filed as an infraction, you have the ability to bring it down to an infraction settlement, because when it goes to the city attorney, the last thing we want to do is crowd the courts with misdemeanor crime after crime and make our citizens criminals. Technically, that's the last thing we want to do. So if we make it a wobbler, then you have the ability to negotiate it down to an infraction when it comes for filing. Is that correct?
Well, it's my understanding that that's done as a matter of course now anyways.
Okay, then if we do make it a wobbler, the officer responding, if the person comes to the location, would have the right to issue a citation at that point, which would then relieve you the responsibility of filing misdemeanor charges in those few instances where that happens.
I believe that is correct.
Okay, so I'd suggest to the council that we make this a Wahlberg offense so that we have at least that option in that 5 or 10% where the citizens do come and are present. And a question of the city attorney, if we have a responding person from a security agency who comes to the location while the officers are present, could they issue that person the citation infraction rather than the homeowner?
I don't think they can issue it by proxy.
Okay.
Because the citation is going to go to the person who uses or operates the system, not
But it's
someone.
their system.
Well,
It's the company's system. So why couldn't we issue a responding security representative the citation?
Okay, I thought you were talking about just simply
Either
being
or.
there at the scene.
No, I'm saying either or.
Right.
If we have a citizen present, that's easy. If we have a responding security company, could they be the legal entity that we give the infraction to, being the owner of the system technically?
I think it would depend on the circumstances, but I think that could be done depending on how the system is defined and whether or not the guard is considered a user of that system.
Okay. I would
or an
suggest
operator.
at least the council today make this a wobbler, and I ask you to look into that possibility that above and beyond the citizen resident, that the responding agent of the alarm company be allowed to accept the infraction as well. And that, I think, would relieve a lot, because we do get an awful lot of police officers who, while they're at a location, will meet up with a security representative who's responding to the alarm as well. So I think that'd be a great option if we can get it. But if not, at least make it a wobbler for those instances where the citizen is present, okay? So I make that amendment, Mr. President. There's a second.
Second. Okay. Ms. Misikowski? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Go ahead. Mr. Zine jumped in for the first time, but go ahead.
Mr. President, first let me clarify, we're not making anything any more harsh than it has been. The law on the books, for as long as we've had it's wrong to have a false alarm, has been a misdemeanor. So we're not changing that. But I have no problem calling it a wobbler and allowing or directing or giving the discretion to police officers, just as they have now. It's been a misdemeanor, and I would ask any one of you to show me last time a misdemeanor was filed on this in the city where it's been prosecuted. But I think you need to peg it as high as a misdemeanor so they can wobble down to the lesser extent. I don't think you wobble up, you wobble down. And we use the term wobbler. I'm not even sure wobbler is a legal definition, but in any case, we know what we mean. So as long as the city attorney writes it in that way with the direction, I think it's fine. Mr. Smith, I absolutely agree that it would be terrific if we could give the citation to the underlying owner of the system who has installed it, and whether they've sold it or leased it or whatever they've done, to the property owner. But I think that's where we ran into the impediment the first time, because the state law preempts us from regulating the industry. So all we can do is, that's why we have focused on the user, because that has had our ability in terms of requiring a permit by the user. We were first going to say the alarm industry was going to be the responsible party for always getting the permits, because we knew who they were filing business licenses, et cetera. We couldn't do that. We had to just work with them to get their information lists as to where these were installed. So again, I think I have no problem with clearly the misdemeanor wobbler, but I think as far as we've looked at it exhaustively, the only thing we can really cite is the underlying responsible party who is dependent on the installer, but really the underlying responsible party is the place where things occur, the property to which we are called, and are responsible for operating that correctly, which is why we're having them get a permit, and why the installation companies are going to help them go through a training period of what it means to have it and have some forgiveness period, et cetera. So I think with that direction, there really is no change in what we're talking about.
Thank you, Ms. Misikowski. And we're looking up the relevant code section on wobbling right now. So, man who never wobbles, Mr. Zine.
Wobbler is what an intoxicated driver does when he's doing a field sobriety test. That's a wobbler. And I'm sure we've seen many of those in our careers, Councilmember Smith. I have a question regarding the compliance factor and collecting of the fines and also administrative charges.
I just signed one.
There are people now who get cited.
No, not everybody.
What is our recovery rate, and how do we capture that, number one? And number two, it troubles me that a resident, a business, purchases an alarm, pays the alarm monthly fee to monitor, and then we don't want to turn those people into criminals So those that have that alarm, that aren't complying, I believe in the carrot and the stick, not to do a negative before we do a positive. And if the industry cooperates as we hope they will, we'll capture all those people, they'll pay their fees, everything will run smooth. But the administrative process that we have in place that currently exists on collecting the fees, collecting the fines, I don't know when anyone's ever cited or anyone was ever sent to court. We're not trying to put these people into court. We're trying to get them to comply with the ordinance regarding the alarms, the permit that is required and the fee that's required with that permit. So can you answer that question regarding the fee recovery, how it's done, is it done? Will this enhance that at all? Or will we just be chasing ourselves in the circle?
It's Chris Espinosa from the Chief Legislative Analyst's office. Right now, the Office of Finance has a 50% collection rate on false alarm fees.
50%?
Right.
And how much is that annually?
It's about $1 million,
So
approximately $1 million.
So we're losing approximately $1 million. That's not being collected.
That's not being collected. There's approximately $3.4 million in uncollected false alarm fees right now,
And how do we-
composed of permitted and unpermitted alarm users.
And how do we go after that?
Recently, the city has contracted with collection agencies and are now using these agencies to collect on these outstanding false alarm fees.
Are we improving the collection rate?
It's improved it slightly. One of the actions that the Public Safety Committee made was to establish a trust fund to improve our collection rate, to improve the tracking of false alarms and improve the data collection that will be coming in. This will be happening in the future, of course, but that should improve our collections rate. Deborah Kirk from the Police Commission could also answer more
Lieutenant
detailed
Deborah
questions.
Kirk.
Lieutenant
of Police.
Good morning. We have about a 48% collection rate on our own at the Police Commission in our alarm section. The amount that we do not collect, we refer to collection agencies. As Chris Espinosa just explained to you, we do have contracts with private collection agencies. There is about $870,000 in uncollected false alarm fees that we have referred to those collection agencies, and their collection rate, the last time we evaluated the collection rate, was 6%.
6%?
Yes.
So we're doing better than the collection agency.
Yes. And according to my staff, we collect about $2.5 million in the alarm section every year on outstanding false alarm fees.
And will this make it better, or will this have any impact? In other words, what we're doing with the numerous sections we're trying to put into place, will this improve it? Will it stay the same? Will it regress? Exactly from your position in commission investigation, where do you see this going?
We believe that compliance with the alarm ordinance, that is, making sure that everyone that operates an alarm system has an alarm permit, will improve the identification of a responsible party and therefore improve our collection rate for outstanding false alarm fees.
And then the false alarms that are charged, I know the fine structure is going up for the false alarms.
Yes.
There will be no more free. The first one you're going to pay, the second one you're going to pay, the verification that takes place. Obviously, there'll be more fees coming to the city if everyone pays, which helps offset the cost that we have to pay to implement, and the computers and the personnel, et cetera. But the concern I have is that we don't turn our residents and our business people into criminals when we're trying to get them to comply, and they're trying to do whatever they can to protect their property. They're paying for an alarm, they're paying a monitoring service, because it's not going to be monitored unless there's a service, unless they have a ringer, and they're trying to enhance the safety of their property, residents or business, and I don't want to turn those people into criminals. And I think if we go after it the wrong way, we're going to turn a lot of people the wrong way, and they don't want to sit in court as a defendant in court. Is there an administrative process that we have in place at this time? Is it working? Is it not working?
We have a misdemeanor program that is coordinated through the alarm section, where we work with the city attorney's office to pursue unpermitted alarm users that have accrued excessive false alarm fees, and that program has been very successful. We not only collect the outstanding false alarm fees, but we also bring them into compliance with the alarm ordinance, that is, that they're required to get an alarm permit for their system. Those are for unpermitted alarm users. We've had a great deal of success with the two-alarm dispatch policy that went into effect in January. We've seen about a 25% decrease in alarm dispatches year to date, and we've gone from about 10,000 calls a month to about 7,000 calls a month. So we have seen some significant improvement. We think that this alarm ordinance is the next step toward kind of tying all these things together and seeing more significant reductions in false alarms.
And from your position as lieutenant in that section, I know you've worked the field, you've been a field supervisor, you've worked your way up that ladder. Is there anything else that needs to be added to this that would make it better for the LAPD, better for the consumers? Or is it a comprehensive package as you see the bill presented, the ordinance
I
presented
think it's
now?
a complete package.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And for a final comment, Ms. Miskowski?
Just a clarification, as Mr. Garcetti has suggested, we should figure out the term wobbler. I've been informed by Mr. Geis and our city attorney that this is not a wobbler issue. Wobbler is between a felony and a misdemeanor. This is a wiggler between a misdemeanor and an infraction. So we'll just keep that straight, and the city attorney can so note.
Hey. Thank you for all the wiggling and the wobbling. We now have this item before us. If we can open the roll. As amended, please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
This item is approved. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 52 was called special for a card from the public.
Okay. We can call forward at this time Soledad Garcia and Tom Walsh, please.
Hello, my name is Soledad Garcia, and I work at the Viceroy Hotel in Santa Monica. I have been working there for the last 4 years. My position at the hotel is minibar attendant. Before that, I was a housekeeper. Before we had a labor pace, the conditions were very bad for us, the employees and the hotel business. I remember work only once or twice a week because of the bad business. Like I said, the work conditions were bad. We had to clean 17 rooms and an 8-hour shift. And if we didn't finish, we had to work off the clock. We never complained because we were scared of getting fired. After labor pace, everything changed. The work environment is much better. We have seen how the business pick up. We start work with the company to make the business better. For example, we went to testify to the city council to make sure that the hotel got the liquor license they needed. We knew that it was important to work together with the company for the benefits of everyone. From my own experience, I know that labor pay is better for the workers, the guests, and the companies. Thank you.
Mr. Tom Walsh?
Yes, good morning. Tom Walsh, representing the 12,000 members of Unite Here Local 11. As many of you know, we have been in, for many months, in negotiations with some of the major hotel chains in Los Angeles. And unfortunately, those negotiations have broken down, and there is a strong possibility any day now that we may be locked out or on strike. We know that we will prevail if that's what it comes to, but we have no doubt that for the tourism industry in Los Angeles, for tourism for our city, any labor dispute of any kind will have a devastating effect. So we support the proposal that you have before you. If the city has any way of influencing or promoting labor peace, that's what you should do, especially where the city has a direct interest or a proprietary interest. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the people who are standing here with you. The public hearing is now closed. Let me recognize Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much. I know Janice Hahn very much wanted to be here. She has to go testify right now at the Board of Supervisors, but she wanted to pass on her thanks to Unite HERE for their good work throughout this. And I wanted to thank Ms. Hahn for her leadership in what's before us as well today, and making sure that in the city of Los Angeles we have labor peace agreements that simply say workers have an obligation to show up and that employers have an obligation not to lock them out. And as you go through that struggle, keeping people at the table and making sure that there is a just and a fair contract is first and foremost in our minds. I know there's so many people around this table who have articulated that, Mr. Villaraigosa, Mr. Ludlow, Mr. Padilla, and Ms. Hahn, of course. But this is a good step forward, making sure that city-owned property has those labor peace agreements in place, and we appreciate your testimony and know is that we're looking at this, that we demand equal responsibilities on both sides. Workers know that they have to show up and put in a day of work, but they also expect the door not be locked on them when they show up to do an honest day of work as well. So as we push forward for that, know that there are many people who have your backs. Will continue pushing for a resolution because a strike would devastate all of us, would devastate our economy locally, and certainly as the city, we want to make sure that city-owned property doesn't ever fall into that category, and this will be a step forward today. Thank you.
Councilmember Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was saddened to have to spend some time last week on the laundry workers who were locked out of the Wilshire Grand. I was sad because these are women who want to work, who want to take care of their families, and have difficult jobs that most of us probably wouldn't want to do, but they're willing to do it, and they do it with a good attitude and with great enthusiasm. And as they proceed through these very difficult negotiations, they are fighting for their dignity and their respect. And I wanted to support them, and in going and talking to the management of the hotel, I found it extremely frustrating because I guess they feel that at this point they can't go back to the table. I asked them personally to unlock the doors because I know that as we proceed as a city to negotiate for a new hotel in proximity to the convention center, the presence of that new hotel will go to the benefit of all of the hotels in this region, all of the hotels, particularly downtown, but all of the hotels in the entire city of Los Angeles will benefit from the presence of a convention center hotel because it will increase the number of conventions here. It will increase the occupancy rates for all of the hotels in this region. And I would expect that as a legislative body, we would be very supportive of all efforts to rise all boats with the tide and to level the playing field for people who really want to do something with their lives. And so I would just like to urge those hotels who are operating now to be circumspect, be introspective, to be humane, and to continue to keep the door open, don't lock the door, and as difficult as it might be, stay at the table for as long as it takes. Thanks.
Councilmember Villaraigosa.
Yes, Madam President, members, tourism industry is an $11 billion industry here in the city of Los Angeles, and it is important, and in fact, it is absolutely critical that all of us do everything we can to promote that industry, to cultivate it, to protect it, to create an environment where there is labor peace. There are 12 cities around the country that have labor peace agreements. They do not because they're taking sides with management or labor, but because they believe that management and labor should have a partnership to promote tourism, a partnership to support the idea that when you work and you play by the rules that you should have a decent wage and benefits that come with that. And so this is a very important step on the part of Los Angeles to say that we support our tourism industry. We don't want to pick winners and losers. We want winners, everyone. And it seems to me that this effort on our part is an important step in the right direction of cultivating and promoting our tourism industry, and the idea that labor peace is critical to that.
Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to echo the sentiments and comments of my colleague Jan Perry and also Eric Garcetti. I think the main issues have been raised. We're very hopeful and encouraging. This agreement, the negotiations that are taking place right now between the hotel industry and the workers to find a quick resolution. I have seen evidence that suggests that this forced lockout is far beyond a necessary step. Just as we saw in the grocery strike and the issues at the bargaining table there, what we found, unfortunately, is that the position of the industry is not because of what's happening today. What we're seeing is that these are preemptive strikes that they are making because their accountants are suggesting that 2 to 3 years from now, they're going to be in a particular situation. And so what I think is important for everyone here today and everyone listening, that we recognize that tourism industry has seen a rebound. We've had evidence presented by the industry and by LA Inc. At the new committee that this body established, Conventions, Tourism, and Entertainment, that makes it very clear that there has been a rebound from the '92 riots. There's been a rebound from 9/11. There's been a rebound from many of the natural disasters that have happened nationwide, and that the industry is beginning to find people revisiting the United States and some of the key cities as their international tourist destination points. But what is unfortunate is that what it has taken to make that rebound possible has been in large part the sweat equity invested by the workers. And there's no industry that's more susceptible to or more requiring of that than the tourism industry, because it's largely an industry based on servicing one customer at a time and making them feel like they are at home. And the way we do that is by having housekeepers rush up at every beck and call, by having bellhops rush up at every beck and call. So it's not international media strategies. These are workers who are delivering that rebound one call at a time, one call at a time, one plate of hors d'oeuvres in the middle of the night at a time, one bag at a time. And so this item that's before us today, I think, is exactly what my colleagues have said. This is an opportunity to say that we as a city want to go on record making it clear that if you do business and you look to build, we want to join the other cities around the nation that have taken a progressive step in the right direction to make sure that there's it's not about leveling a playing field, it's actually putting a playing field out there in the first place. And so I applaud this, and again, I want the workers who are here to know that this body has gone on record indicating that we hope there can be a quick resolution in the labor discussions, and we obviously are hopeful that people here at the Horseshoe would vote on this item unanimously to send the right message proactively. So again, thank you. I particularly and many other colleagues are in strong solidarity with your efforts, and let's continue to fight the good fight. Thank you.
Councilmember Cardenas.
I want to thank Council Members Hahn and Garcetti for bringing this very important issue forward. Not only is it an issue of substance, but it's also an issue that's very symbolic. And what I find is very symbolic is the fact that the hard-working people that are providing a service to this multi-billion-dollar industry, all they want in return is to be able to provide for their families and to have benefits and not be a burden on the community and to just have that dignity, and they deserve that dignity and that respect regardless of what language they speak, regardless of what country they come from. The fact of the matter is they are here in Los Angeles, they are here in this country, and they're providing a service, and they're working a very, very hard job, and they deserve to have that respect. And I think it's appropriate that we move this motion forward and show, like Martin Ludlow just said, our solidarity and respect and support for the industry and the hardest working people in this industry. We support you, and once again, Jan Perry, let's keep those doors open. Let's keep those doors open. Let's make sure that we send the message out that we expect and want these businesses to deal in good faith and to treat these people in good faith and with respect. Thank you.
Councilmember Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to rise in support. When you look at all of the policies we pass here, we talk about quality of life, and we speak to all the changes, the debates, really boils down to what we're trying to achieve for a family. We're trying to achieve for the individual who needs a roof over their head, a decent living, a place where kids can learn. You can't do that without the kind of wages and salaries and support systems that is being asked for. So I would hope this would be a unanimous vote. I would hope that we could send a clear message that we do need to form these partnerships, that each sector of this economy needs to work together, and that we should have a balanced field, just as has been stated earlier. So I just rise in support. A lot that I wanted to say has been spoken to by my colleagues, and I just want to thank you for your hard work, your sacrifices, and believe me, they're not going unnoticed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There are no other members of the council who would like to speak on this matter, so the motion and the recommendation is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That matter is approved. We will send it forthwith. Madam Clerk?
Madam President, do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Yes, let's clear the desk.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
They are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Villaraigosa requests to be excused Friday, September 24th for personal business. A motion is required.
Mr. Zine moves, Mr. Smith seconds. Mr. Villaraigosa's excuse is approved.
Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused Wednesday, September 22nd to leave at 11:30 for city business. That meets council policy.
Mr. Weiss is excused on that date.
And that clears the desk for closed session.
All right, let me recognize Mr. Smith.
Yes, Madam President, I ask items number 30 and number 62 go forthwith, please.
Items 30 and 62 has already been sent forthwith. 62 and item 30 will be sent forthwith.
Thank you.
Members, we also have a public speaking card on one of our closed session items. It's not normal that we hear from people, but if there's no objection, before we go into closed session, let me call a Mr. Daniel Weislenar, if he would like to speak on item 66.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this special consideration. I was late for your public comment, and therefore I apologize. There are 2 documents that are being sent to you right now, and I hope each of you will take a look at them. While you're seeing what I've written and perhaps reading it, I'd like to just tell you that these involve procedure of all kinds of committees. This committee, committees, your subcommittees, the agencies that hold committees, the neighborhood councils that hold committees. When someone comes to this board, comes to one of those meetings, we often have a 1, 2, or 3 minute limit. And I'd like you to consider a formal document that might tell all of us that when somebody has spent all the time and effort to come here to speak with you, that you have respect and courtesy for them, and will at times, as I know this chair and the chair who's right behind, the chairperson who's right beside the chair has done in the past, to allow the person to complete their comment exceeding the 2 or 3 minute time. This is being invoked in the neighborhood councils in ways in which are chilling to the participants. And the people who come to these neighborhood council meetings are thereby drawing away from their participation to a degree. And I hope that we can show them an example in this body and in the other bodies of the city and in our neighborhood councils that we really want to hear and we really want to involve and really want to bring those people forward. The second document is for your review, and I hope you will consider also what's being discussed there. We have two meetings coming up on the 9th of October. The Neighborhood Council Congress, which meets twice a year and brings about 1,000 neighborhood council people together for one of the most stimulating and profitable group meetings that we ever have each year. But unfortunately, the mayor has seen fit to also piggyback on that, the mayor's budget meeting, which of course is what Jerry Maguire says, where we follow the money. Well, it's hard to follow the money and follow the politics and follow the issues all in one day and all with one brain. And I was hoping that I would get the opportunity to, of course, be heard publicly by you and by the listeners and the viewers on 35 of both of these meetings, the difficulties that we're going to have when all of them are held at one time. But the promise that this particular neighborhood council stakeholder, and I know several others in this audience and many others in this city, that we're still here to help participate in this city government. Again, my thanks for the ability to speak at this unexpected time.
All right, thank you. That closes general public comment again, and I believe it is now time to, the desk is clear. Oh, we need the city attorney to give us a special instruction.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a correction to the agenda description on item number 69 should read pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9B.
All right, we've had that correction, which allows us to go into executive session to discuss that with our attorneys. It's time to, I believe, clear the room so we can proceed with the executive session matters. All right, council is back in public session. Madam Clerk?
There is one item before council. It's item number 68, and that's settlement in the case of Enrique Ramirez et al. Versus City of Los Angeles, and that's in the amount of $150,000.
Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That matter is approved. Let me recognize Mr. Smith.
I'd also ask that item number 24 go forthwith, please.
Item 24 will go forthwith without objection. All right, is that clear the desk?
Yes, Madam President.
All right, now is the time for announcements. Are there any announcements from members? No. Any other announcements from members?
That's important. It's a change of season. Tomorrow's the first official day of fall.
Watch out for trees. Particularly today
fire,
with the winds, yes.
Winds, everything.
Not only limbs falling, but limb branches and things in the street. Are there any adjourning motions, members? Mr. Labange does have an adjourning member. Would all members please rise, and all those in the audience? Mr. Labange.
I just wanted to ask that we adjourn in memory of Marvin Mitchelson, who was 76, a very prominent attorney who grew up in Los Angeles, went to Los Angeles High School here in the city. He was very much involved in a lot of celebrated cases throughout his career. He served in the United States Navy as a corpsman and got a degree from UCLA in 1953. Attended Southwestern Law School, and he lived a life of quite fame as a lawyer. He is survived by his wife, Marcella, and their son, Morgan. Ask that we adjourn in memory of Marvin Mitchelson.
Any other adjourning tributes? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.